On the fateful morning of May 5th, 2009, Chris Coleman had gone for his usual morning exercise while his 31-year-old wife, Sheri Coleman, and two sons, 11-year-old Garret and 9-year-old Gavin, were home. But soon, Chris realized that something was off when Sheri didn't answer calls or texts. He asked a neighbor, who was a cop, for help. The cop called for backup. When they got no response at the door, they entered through a window, only to discover the lifeless and strangled body of the mother and her sons in the house, along with red spray-painted messages on the wall saying, "You have paid." The haunting question hung heavy in the air. What happened to this once joyful family, and why? This is their tragic tale. Chris Coleman was the embodiment of an all-American. He was a military veteran, a devoted Christian, and a genuinely good person. His dedication and hard work made him well liked among peers and co-workers. Everyone loved him. So, it is not surprising that when he crossed paths with Sheri Weiss, she fell head over heels in love, leading to marriage and the beginning of a family. Gavin arrived first, followed by Garret 2 years later. By 2009, Chris had a prestigious job as the personal security guard for Joyce Myers, pulling in a hefty annual salary of over $100,000. However, the demands of his job kept him frequently on the road, distant from his beloved family. But despite the hurdles, the Coleman family enjoyed a peaceful and comfortable life. But, as fate would have it, the peace was destined to be shattered. Now, Chris was the last person you suspect of infidelity. But in November 2008, Sheri started sensing something was off in their marriage. She had a weird gut feeling. You know, the feeling that often guides a woman's intuition. Wondering why she started thinking like that? Well, she noticed subtle changes in Chris's behavior. Distant, disinterested, and arguments becoming more frequent. It was a major red flag. It was around this time Sheri confided in a friend, saying, "If anything happens to me, Chris did it." Around the same time, Chris, along with Joyce Myers and her son, received a disturbing email from an anonymous sender. The email spewed curses and threats towards the trio. Then, in January 2009, a threatening letter arrived in Chris's mailbox, specifically targeting his family. Concerned, Chris turned to his neighbor, Sergeant Deputy Justin Barlow of the Columbia Police Department. Barlow took action, monitoring the neighborhood and installing a security camera focused on the Coleman home. Despite these precautions, neither the security camera nor increased patrols yielded any clues about the person behind the threatening letter and email. The tension escalated in April when Chris reported yet another letter in his mailbox. Once again, officers combed the area, finding no suspicious activity related to the Coleman residence. No one was aware of the terrible events that would soon follow these threats. On the evening of May 5th, 2009, Chris left his family's home to go to the gym. His wife and both his sons were home. Sometime during the day, he tried calling and texting Sheri, but she didn't respond. Worried and scared for his wife's safety, Chris urgently called his neighbor, who was in the police, for help. Wasting no time, Detective Sergeant Barlow and another officer arrived at the Coleman home for a welfare check, but no one answered the door. They found an open basement window and went inside. To their shock, the walls had creepy messages in red spray paint. "I am always watching. You have paid and punished." As they kept looking around, the officers discovered a horrifying scene in the once happy home. Sheri, Gavin, and Garret Coleman were found dead in their beds, with marks on their necks showing they had been strangled. The home that was once filled with joy now echoed with horror. It was a tragic sight, but the question was, who killed them and why? While the police officers were going back through the house, Chris arrived in the driveway just before 7 a.m., but he was held back from entering the house. Now, here's when things start getting fishy. Upon learning about the tragic fate of his wife and kids, Chris showed what seemed like forced tears. It was as if he didn't feel the weight of losing his family. What's even stranger is that he didn't ask for any details about the murder. The police also noticed he was trying to hide scratches on his arm, raising eyebrows and making him an instant suspect. Before we move ahead, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more spine-tingling cases and their unexpected twists and turns. They are guaranteed to keep you up at night, for sure. Chris was now a suspect and was taken in for questioning. He insisted that his wife and kids were alive when he left for the gym, but guess what? Medical reports showed otherwise. The report findings contradicted his claim, indicating that the three were already dead by 5:30 a.m., the exact time Chris left the house. The pieces of this puzzling situation started forming a disturbing picture. Digital evidence extracted from Sheri's phone and Chris's laptop unveiled martial troubles. It turns out that Sheri was right after all. Her husband was indeed having an affair with a woman named Tara Lentz. During the questioning, Chris revealed that Lentz was Sheri's friend from St. Petersburg, Florida. Simultaneously, officers in Florida were interrogating Lentz about her connection with Chris Coleman. Investigation revealed that the two had secret meetups in Arizona and Hawaii during Chris's work travels, exchanging explicit texts, pictures, and videos. And besides the cheating part, other evidence was also piling up against Chris. CCTV footage from a neighbor's home confirmed that no one else had entered the house after Chris left for the gym. The absence of any DNA on the victims, except for Chris, further implicated him. A credit statement disclosed that Chris had purchased spray paint matching the color found at the crime scene. What's more, the origin of the threatening emails was traced back to an account created by Chris 6 months before the tragedy. Shockingly, the three victims had perished between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. when Chris was still at home. The spray-painted messages had a striking resemblance to Chris's handwriting, cementing the case against him. Evidence from Interstate 255, a route Chris usually took to the gym, was also examined. However, cell phone tracking later revealed that Chris had taken a longer route home on the morning of May 5th. Every piece of evidence pointed to one chilling conclusion: Chris was the killer. On May 19, 2009, Chris Coleman was arrested and charged with killing his wife and 2 sons. Prosecutors said he wanted to leave his marriage for another woman and tried to blame someone else for the murders. Tara Lentz, the woman Chris was involved with, testified that they planned to end his marriage. However, the defense argued that someone else could have sent threatening messages and committed the crime. After a 9-day trial, the jury found Chris guilty on all counts on May 5, 2011. Chris was sentenced to life in prison without parole. He was moved to different prisons for safety reasons. Despite a retrial request being denied, Chris Coleman remains behind bars, serving a life sentence for the tragic events that took place in his family home. But the question is, if Chris really wanted to run away with his mistress, why didn't he file for divorce? Why would he go to such an extreme length and get rid of his entire family? Share your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in another video.